Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tusk. So Tusk is a hero that kind of was more of a pub stompy hero, like people played him in pubs. He was pretty good, but he never really got that much play in pros or high level pubs, but that has changed in the last few patches because he's gotten, some more abilities, some more, unique ways to deal with late game scenarios, some more control, all this different stuff. These various buffs that he's gotten have actually made him extremely popular now. And so the main way that you can think about Tusk, like the main roles that he plays, are usually 4 position and now mid. So he's kind of always been a 4 position, potentially an offlaner. That was really where Tusk was mainly played. And he's still very good at that role. He's still played as a 4 position a lot. But I'm actually going to be focusing in this video on the mid version of this hero because it pretty much does everything that the 4 position or offlane version does. It just does way more damage. So really the only difference between the mid Tusk and then the offlaner 4 position Tusk is that offlane Tusk may be buying an Ags. That's probably where you're going to be going. You're not going to go straight damage, but more for the control in an Ags. And then as a support 4 position Tusk, you're probably just going to be going a Blink Dagger and then even maybe potentially an Ags, but really not going for damage. But those two things are just control and save spells, which obviously are good, but there's not really too much to say about them other than, you blink in, you save with Snowball, you initiate, that kind of stuff. It's just way more interesting, I think, to talk about the mid version of Tusk, the damage, the core version of Tusk, which is almost like the ideal of how to play the hero. And then the other roles, you kind of scale back from there, and you don't necessarily, play him to his full potential with damage, but you use the other aspects of him in general. So that's actually how we can think about Tusk as a hero. He does basically 2 things. He's a right-click damage dealer, or he is a kind of control team fight hero. He kind of does both things. So even though he's very different than Slardar, you can kind of think of him like Slardar and just the things that he's good at. Physical damage and team fight control. It's just that Tusk does it in a very unique way. He has kind of this mini Mars ult, I guess you could call it, like a wall thing where people can only get over it if, they can get over cliffs. He has kind of this delayed stun that puts him out of position, so it's not really a reliable stun, but it can be very good. It's also a save, and then he has like this slow damage, like one-shot build in a way, kind of with his ult and stuff like that. So we're going to be primarily focusing on the sort of right-click one-shot kind of build from the mid lane, but he still does all the other things from the mid lane as well. So anyway, that is how to think about Tusk in general. Now let's jump in and take a look at his abilities. So now that we understand Tusk in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that good physical damage hero that also has some teamfight control and positioning abilities as well as a save. And so first we're going to take a look at Ice Shards. It's his Q. It's a pretty straightforward ability, actually. It's the wall ability that I talked about earlier. So basically what you do is you just press the Q and then you can kind of aim it in any direction. You can see, look at the super wide range that it has there. You can see just from where I'm standing, you can throw these Ice Shards really, really far. So what you basically do is, it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of click on an area in that AoE and it shoots out Ice Shards to that distance. So wherever you click is where the Ice Shards end up. And basically what you can think of it is wherever your mouse is kind of where the back of the Ice Shards are. So here's Axe. If I send the Ice Shards right here, Axe has to like walk all the way back and around to get where he's originally going. So this is very, very good for chasing, whether in lane or later in the game. If you're ganking somebody, it's just a great all-around chasing tool because you're going to be throwing this, they're going to be running, and then they have to go back. Now you can hit them, enemies or allies can hit them as well. So, like I said, a good positioning kind of wall tool, just like a mini Mars ult, I guess you could think about it like that. It also does damage. So you can see that if I click it here through the axe, it does significant amount of damage. So you can actually use this spell in combination with his other spells to clear through creep waves to do just a little bit of extra damage. So it's not just like a positioning or a team fight control ability. It also does damage as well. And that's pretty much straightforward. There's really nothing else to say. There's little things that you can do where you like actually can position yourself in a weird way. Like if you throw it out, I'm not the best at doing it, but you have to kind of click it right on yourself and you see it like repositions you. So if you get really good at it, I would suggest you can kind of go into a lobby and practice it. I'm not really going to show you it here, but you can actually use Ice Shards to like push yourself onto cliffs and high grounds and actually escape. But that's kind of a more high level thing to do with Ice Shards. So that's Ice Shards. Next we're going to look at Snowball. Snowball's a pretty straightforward ability. You actually just click it on an enemy, and then you go into a snowball, and then after a pretty decent delay, you actually roll towards them and stun them and do some damage. Now, the key is you can kind of do it from a pretty decent distance. This has a pretty long cast range here. And then you can actually just click Snowball again whenever you want during that kind of charge up time, and then you will actually just roll right at them immediately. So you don't have to wait the full time. It's not like you have to sit here and just wait. You can actually just press Snowball again, and then boom, there you go. You roll at them. Now, keep in mind, like let's say, you know, I'm here, Axe is here. We'll just have Axe run like this. If I click Snowball and just wait, you know, the Axe can potentially just run so far away that my Snowball actually doesn't even get to him. Now, they've actually buffed Snowball recently, I believe, so it goes like faster or something. So it's actually a lot harder for heroes to run completely far away, like so far away that you don't hit them with the stun eventually. But that can happen. Like if you have a very fast hero, maybe a Puck, a Wind Ranger, some hero that can get, you know, even a Storm Spirit that can get, you know, far away from you pretty quickly, you might not actually hit them with the Snowball, and then you'll actually put yourself in harm's way. So keep that in mind. That is something that you don't want to be doing. You don't want to just like Snowball them, wait, and then suddenly you're just within 5 heroes and you just instantly die. So it is a bit of a skill shot in that way. It's not a skill shot in the sense of you just click it on the enemy, but it is a skill shot in the sense of predicting what's going to happen, not putting yourself in harm's way, that kind of stuff. The other thing that can happen is if you Snowball, in combination, you can click this and then actually place your ice shards while you're snowballing as well. So you can kind of roll in, stun them, ice shards for damage, and to block them in after the stun as well. So it's kind of this combo that you can do. Or you can ice shards, you know, earlier so that they have to kind of walk backwards, so you make sure you're not snowballing too far out of range or too far into tower range, let's say, those kinds of things. So there's some combinations you can do with these two. This is also how you will clear creep waves. So with Snowball, what you'll do is you'll snowball, let's say, the ranged creep. You'll roll through all of the creeps, do damage and stun through all of them, throw out your ice shards, and then you'll clear the entire wave, which is important because that's pretty much the way this hero farms, especially if you're playing core. Now, the other thing I will show you really briefly is that if I spawn a friendly Axe here, and I actually press my Snowball button on the Axe, I can actually right-click the friendly Axe, and I will bring the friendly Axe in with me, and then we can obviously, you know, attack the enemy, we can run at the enemy, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just an offensive tool, it's also a save tool in the sense that if, you know, if this Axe, my friendly Axe here, gets attacked, gets stunned, something like that, I can jump in, I can Snowball, and then I can click him and save him. So it's a mini save. It's a little bit harder to pull off than some other saves, but it's still a very good save. Now, the range is like decent, but it's not super far, so you have to get pretty close. You can see I'm clicking on the Axe. Obviously I can't move while in the Snowball, and I'm not going to be able to get him if I'm not right next to him, so just keep that in mind. So that's Snowball, that's how to use it pretty much in every different aspect that you can. And then next we're going to look at Tag Team. So Tag Team is a pretty straightforward ability. Basically what you do is you just click it, and then it gives you this buff in an AoE. You can see the enemy there is kind of like there's ice shards or whatever around him. And then every time you hit the enemy, it slows them and does extra damage. So you can see there, we'll just walk in this direction, and you can see every time I hit Axe, he's slowed, and then he's taking extra damage. So I'll refresh here and show you that it doesn't just work on it doesn't just work on Tusk, it works on any ally that's in that AoE. So we can see I'll go here, I'll press my E, and then every time both of us, Axe or the Tusk, is hitting, it does slow and damage. So it's just a good way to buff up any damage in the lane, to pressure the enemy, to just do a little bit of extra damage, to apply a slow. It's primarily, I would say, a lane ability. It's very, very threatening. If there's heroes that you're laning against that just cannot get out from under you, you can shards, you can snowball, you can use Tag Team. It's a very, very hard to get away from a Tusk if you're in a side lane and they can walk up. Now, I will say, people have been building this hero with maxing Snowball and Ice Shards just to clear waves and farm. So I get that is kind of a build, but if you're forward position, if you're off lane, Tag Team can be very, very dangerous for any enemy carries or supports to walk into, because if they get out of position, they're just going to die. And so just keep that in mind. That's really good for that. And also, obviously, later in the game, it just offers bonus damage. That's never really a bad thing. A little bit of slow, never really a bad thing. And then finally, we have Walrus Punch. So Walrus Punch is pretty straightforward. Basically, it's just a right-click enhancing attack. You just click it on Axe here, and boom, you just punch him in the air. It's a stun. It's like, he flies in the air, stunned for that duration as well, cancels TPs, those kinds of things. And it's a pretty low cooldown. Obviously, I have free spells on here, but it's 15 seconds level 2, 20 level 1. And then finally, we see at 10 at the last level. So you can use this ability multiple times in team fights, and then if you're a core and you have maybe some damage items, let's say you're playing at mid or even off lane, you have some damage items, you can do insane amounts of damage with this ability because it's obviously a critical hit as well. So it's you know, this is kind of how you can get one shot by Tusk. I know if you have like Deso, AC, this hero can absolutely just like one shot players, especially squishy supports. So keep that in mind. Then I will actually talk briefly about the Ags. I'm not going to talk much about the Shard because it's kind of like, whatever. But Ags is the kind of, if you're not going straight damage, if you're going more for control, obviously you can buy Blink to like blink in, snowball people, save them, that kind of thing. But the other big thing if you're playing off lane is you're going to be buying this Agnum Scepter because this is another really good control spell. It's basically a kick. So you have a punch and now you get a kick. So basically you can click this axe, and then you have this vector targeting ability. You click D, then you click axe, and you can pretty much kick him in any direction. So this is really good. It's like kind of just a Magnus skewer, like a Magnus horn toss skewer. You can like jump into the enemy base, kick somebody back. You just kick people out of position. It's like tiny toss, anything like that. You can kick people away if they're chasing you. It's just a really great all-around ability and has a generally low cooldown as well. So we have Walrus Kick, Walrus Punch. You're just kind of constantly being super annoying in team fights with these abilities if you're able to get that. So if you need control, if that's what you need, if you have a ton of damage but you're really not able to pick people off or get stuns off, then this Ags is really going to do wonders for you on Tusk. So those are all of Tusk's abilities. That's how he works. Now let's jump into a game and see how he's played. So now we're jumping into a replay of Nisha playing Tusk mid. And to be honest, this laning stage for Tusk is not that difficult. You kind of just right-click the enemy if you have the capabilities. Use Snowball to dodge any potential spells like we see right there. Obviously, this is a melee versus melee matchup, so it's kind of unique. And also, Pango does have the ability to just kind of swashbuckle out of shards. Otherwise, really what you're going to be doing with this hero is harassing if you can, and then trying to get the enemy into a position where they're kind of caught out, where you hit them with Snowball, you trap them with shards, you can do a ton of damage if they don't have their spells or any way to really turn on you, because you're very tanky, you have very high armor, and decent right-click damage as a hero in general. So you're pretty strong overall as a strength hero. And then otherwise, you're just obviously getting your farm. I think you pretty reliably can get farm, and then kind of the name of the game is if you do have a hard lane against some kind of ranged hero that really zoning you out, like a Viper or something, what you want to do is just kind of soak, pull the lane back as much as possible, and then get your levels so that you can clear waves pretty quick, as we see some outplaying about to happen right here. Insane shard block. So yeah, there are a lot of kind of cool little things, cool cheeky things you can do with this hero as well. As we see, this is why Nisha's probably the best player in the entire world. He also was pretty risky going for that rune just in general. He didn't even need to do that, but he just decided to, and ended up actually getting the kill despite missing the rune. That was kind of insane. But in any case, this is just Tusk's laning stage, to be honest. Obviously, like I said, melee versus melee matchup, so is pretty unique in that sense, but I think this hero can reliably get farm, and then if you do have a tough lane, you can always just make sure you're soaking XP and stuff, and maxing out your first two spells so that you can just eventually clear waves and protect the tower, and that's kind of just what Tusk wants to do in general. So now I'm jumping ahead to about 6-7 minutes here. We can see he decides to TP bottom and turn a kill there on the Razor. And this is pretty much what you want to be doing with this hero. Once you hit like 6-7 minutes and you have, you know, your level 6, your level 7, is you just, because this cooldown on Walrus Punch is so low, and you are mid with a bottle, you basically just want to be brawling as much as possible, like 24/7. You know, you see he can't really go top where the enemy is. Otherwise, he probably would TP up there because he did use his TP for bottom. But he's just playing super aggressive on the map. Obviously, he has a support that's helping him take mid, which is very good. He's still checking runes, these kinds of things, but he's really just trying to brawl as much as possible or play aggressive on the enemy side of the map, like we see here in the enemy jungle, if he's not just like straight up ganking somebody or running at somebody. But you can see there, they decide to just straight up dive tier 1 because this is what this hero can do. Super low cooldown spells, insane damage early, and you kind of just don't stop doing insane amounts of damage because once these are maxed out, you clear through waves, you still can farm, then you also do ridiculous amounts of damage with your low cooldown Walrus Punch. So you can see he's just like basically using spells over and over and over again, and he's max mana, max health with the bottle there, and he's just basically dominating the game by himself, honestly. As we see the circumstances going here, it's like 4v1 and he's still like zoning them out. This hero is also really tanky. You can see 1300 HP or this early in the game. Like, it's hard for most heroes to deal with this this amount of damage. Like, he's just, look at that, 3v1 dude. Now he has had a good start, but he doesn't really have many items. He just has his boots and like a Blightstone. This hero is just, I think stat wise, very, very good. and then obviously does insane damage early when you max out these spells and you have this low cooldown Walrus Punch. So that's just like a perfect example of how to play Tusk in this like early game after you have some levels. Like even if his start didn't go as well, he can almost still do the same thing. You can see, like I said, all he has is just his basic boots, and he's just saving up for a Blink Dagger. But you're just such a menace on the map as this hero early on. So that's something you definitely want to take advantage of. You don't just want to be sitting back and passively farming. So the next thing I want to show you here is about at 18 minutes. Kind of just how you want to think about and conceptualize this hero. As you see, he just jumps in and one-shots the Lich. And that's kind of what this hero wants to do. This hero is all about isolating people and just picking them off kind of one by one. Yes, you do have teamfight control. Yes, you can kind of cause havoc in fights, but you're not like a Tide Hunter. You're not a Enigma Black Hole kind of hero. You're just like an isolate, single target damage, kind of stun, and take one guy out of the fight. And if you can't do that, if there's a lot of enemies around, or you're not really sure if there's one guy, you don't necessarily want to jump in. So you can see he has an invis rune. He's kind of being aggressive here, but he's not so sure whether they're alone. They definitely have vision on him. And so he's just being a little bit careful because everyone's missing. Then he kind of pops his head up here. He sees, okay, there's actually a bunch of guys here. I don't necessarily want to be, 1v4ing because it is a little bit later now. People have some more items. But he does see the techies down bottom trying to solo kill the anti-mage, and boom, he jumps in, just kills the techies. That's exactly how you want to be playing this hero. If you ever see anybody solo, you just want to jump in and pick him off. He's almost like a Legion commander in that way. You just want to isolate players. He's all about isolation, whether it even is if you buy the Ags with a kick or whatever, jumping in on supports, one-shotting them with your ultimate, stunning them, isolating, all that kind of stuff. That's exactly how you want to be playing with this hero, kind of going from one to the next, isolating players and picking them off. Because you saw in the earlier portion in that early game, he was basically brawling, 1v3ing, 1v4ing. But once you get, 20 minutes in the game, you can't necessarily do that anymore. You have your blink, you have good damage, but you don't want to just run in and try to 1v5, because you're not going to be able to do that once players have items. Like once this Razor gets a BKB, it's going to be a lot harder. So you just want to be sure that you're not, trying to play superhero ball all the time. You can see that's a perfect example of how, he's not able to just 1v5. He just runs in there against the Razor. Razor has BKB. Pango's able to, get the roll off. He just walks up to high ground, and he does die. So it's not like you're invincible. Very early on, you're strong, but it's all about isolating targets and picking them off, because if you just run in like 1v3, that can be difficult. So this hero's, that's pretty much all what the hero does. And then even later on to the game, once you get more and more damage, you're going to be able to pick heroes off even easier because of how much damage you're doing, which I'll show you here in a bit. And now lastly, if we jump ahead here, we can see that his team's doing pretty well. He pretty much made all the space in the game because that was kind of his role, because he had basically 2 farming cores, and that's why he was brawling a ton. But if you do, want to farm a little bit more, that is possible. We do, if you go watch this replay, we will see him farm at different times. We can see this late game team fight, he does exactly the same thing that he was doing in the other fights. He was just initiating, jumping in, isolating one support, and just instantly killing. That's pretty much what you want to do. Now, it doesn't always need to be a support, but they have a Primal Beast, a Pango, and a Razor as cores, and so they're pretty tanky. They have a lot of HP. You're not probably going to blow them up in one hit, but you definitely know they're 2 squishy supports you can. So we can see that's pretty much how he just plays. He runs in, kills the support, kind of goes in the back line, then again just waits for another opportunity to blink back in again and kill the other support, and then finishes the team fight up from there. And that's pretty much how you want to be playing Tusk, just in general, from the off lane, from the carry, from the mid lane. Now, in this mid lane, you're going to be doing way more damage than control. It's just which one are you going to be doing, control or damage? And obviously from the mid lane, he's going to be doing more damage. He can blow those supports up way better. But if you're off lane, even if you're support, you blink in, you might isolate a guy, you might kick him back if you have the walrus kick, that kind of stuff. So it's very straightforward with how you play that hero later in the game. It's very straightforward, but it's also one-dimensional. So you need to make sure you're doing the right thing. You're not falling off, you're maintaining your items, you're not just feeding a lot, you're making space correctly. So it's not like an easy hero by any means. It's not just like you're automatically going to win by just one-shotting people, because if you don't have those items to one-shot, if there's a lot of defensive items that come out, you can have some difficult ending games. You can have difficult killing even supports at times if you're not pretty farmed. So just keep that in mind. So that is Tusk. That's how to play him overall. As always, guys, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. If you haven't already, go join the Discord. And if you want to see more videos like this into the future and like this content, consider supporting me at Patreon. I also offer coaching there as well. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.